Grateful I am, and I'm sure many other members of the House are, to both the High Court and the Supreme Court for their rulings, which ensure that this legislation comes in front of the House of Commons today. Because, as has been pointed out by our judges, not least by Lord Justice Laws in the Metric Martyrs case, the original European Communities Act of 1972 was a constitutional statute of such significance that it and its provisions can only be changed by legislation. And I'm glad the government is bringing forward this bill. Now, the 1972 European Communities Act is so significant because, uniquely, it allows laws made outside this House to have direct effect in the law of this land. That means that laws which are framed, designed, shaped by individuals whom we have never elected and whom we cannot remove, have a sovereign ability to dictate what is legal and what is illegal in this House. And I listen with respect and interest to all those, like the honourable gentleman who just spoke, who stressed the importance of parliamentary scrutiny. But where were they in the period between 1972 and now, when literally thousands of laws were imposed on the people of this country, not just without scrutiny, but without debate, without vote, without the possibility of amendment or rejection? I have to say, they are pretty late coming to the Democratic Party now. And in talking about democracy, I think it's vitally important, as was pointed out in the brilliant speech by my right honourable friend, the Member of Parliament for West Dorset, that we do not attempt to revisit the decision that the British people made last year. And I thought it was instructive that the former leader of the Liberal Democrats, the member for Sheffield Hallam, was so dismissive of the result and the debate during the course of the referendum. A previous leader of the Liberal Democrat Party, as has been pointed out, said on referendum night, "In, out, when the British people have spoken, you do what they command. Either you believe in democracy or you don't. When democracy speaks, we obey. All of us do. Any people who retreat into, we're coming back for a second one, they don't believe in democracy." It is a tragedy that the party which is called Liberal Democrat is scarcely liberal and now anti-democratic. And it would be harmful for our democracy at a time when all of us are concerned about the rise of raucous populism, harmful for our democracy. I note the response from the SNP, who are the prime traders in raucous populism and the politics of division. But if we were now to reject the considered decision of 17.4 million of our fellow citizens, we would only be feeding the disaffection with the democratic process that in other countries has led to unfortunate results. That is why, again, my right honourable friend, the member for West Dorset, was right. We should respect the result and honour the mandate. And I note that there are a number of people who ask now for white papers and scrutiny and greater clarity. We've already had a promise of a white paper. We've had a 6,000-word speech from our Prime Minister. We've had clarity in all of these issues. There are people who not only won't take yes for an answer, they're people who are not seeking clarity, they're seeking obfuscation, delay and a dilution of the democratic mandate of the British people. Because, as was pointed out, happy to give it.
Thank you very much indeed. And firstly, can I just say that I think a 6,000-word speech for the honourable gentleman would, I know, be a very short speech if he were to give it. But can I just challenge him on the issue of a white paper? He and many others who voted to campaign to leave want to take back control to rest in this sovereign parliament. Does he not agree, then, that it is right that the government's terms that they want to start negotiations with are presented in a white paper to this parliament and not just in a speech at Lancaster House?
Well, the Prime Minister has already agreed that a white paper will be published, and I think quite rightly so. And I think it is also the case that the Secretary of State said from the dispatch box that it would come as soon as possible. I have enormous respect for my right honourable friend. I'm going to return to an argument that she's made outside this place in just a second. But I would say that so many of those who call for a white paper or clarification so very rarely actually outline what they think the right course is. It is so very rare that we have a positive case put. Instead, what we have repeatedly is an attempt to rewrite what happened in the referendum debate. The honourable member for Derby South tried to present the referendum debate as though it was somehow inconclusive on questions like our membership of the single market or the customs union. But as my right honourable friend, the member for Dorset West, pointed out, we could not have been clearer on behalf of the Leave campaign that we were leaving the single market, and it was also perfectly clear that we could not have the trade deals of the future without leaving the customs union. And I'm delighted to give way to my honourable friend.
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend. Could he therefore please assure us that he still would be true to his claim as a leader of the Leave campaign that £350 million will now be going to our NHS? Or does he agree with others that actually that figure was always false and it was a lie?
I've no idea whether or not the word lie is unparliamentary, but what I do know is that as someone who is not in the government, I can't deliver these sums. But what I can do is I can consistently argue, as I have, that when we take back control of the money that we currently give to the European Union, we can invest that money in the NHS. And in fact, it was the consistent claim of the Leave campaign, as the Right Honourable Lady well knows, that we should wish to give £100 million to the NHS. Some of the money that we were going to take back control of, we would also use to spend on supporting science and also on making sure that we could get rid of VAT on fuel, something that we cannot do while we are still members of the European Union. Delighted to give way.
Right honourable member for giving way. He may not be in the government and able to make the decision, but surely he will be lobbying his Prime Minister hard for the £350 million for the NHS. Can he confirm that?
They certainly have repeatedly argued that we should ensure that when we leave the European Union that money is spent on our National Health Service and on other vital public services. And this comes to the heart of the challenge, the fair challenge that was issued by the member for Leeds Central and by the opposition spokesman for Holborn and St Pancras, which is, how do we ensure that the views of the 52%, which were clear and unambiguous and which this legislation gives effect to, and the views of the 48% who didn't vote to leave the European Union are respected? And my challenge to the 48%, and of course the 48% are respected at the highest, represented rather, at the highest levels of the government. We have a Prime Minister, a Chancellor of the Exchequer, who voted to remain in the European Union. So it's not as though those views are ignored or marginal. But my challenge and my offer is, can we ensure that the Brexit that we embrace is liberal, open and democratic? For my part, that means, yes, more money to the National Health Service. It also means embracing the principles outlined by my right honourable friend, the member for Loughborough, in a recent article on Conservative Home. It means giving, as the member for Edgbaston said, an absolute unilateral guarantee to EU citizens that they should stay here. It also means having a free trade policy which, liberated from the common external tariff, allows us to lower trade barriers to developing nations and to help the third world to advance. It means exercising a leadership role on the world stage at a time when in Europe, European Union politicians are increasingly naive or appeasing in their attitude towards Vladimir Putin. It means that we can stand tall, as the Prime Minister did, in making the case for collective Western security and NATO. These are all opportunities available to us as we leave the European Union. And the challenge to the other side and the opportunity for us is to ensure that we make that positive case. Yes, of course.